For the world is hell, and men are, on the one hand, the tormented souls, and on the other, the devils in it. Arthur Schopenhauer. Paul sagged against the wall in a spasm of dizziness. He felt that he'd been upended and drained. His own life whipped past him. He saw his father. He was his father. And the grandfather. And the grandfathers before that. His awareness tumbled through a mind-shattering corridor of his whole male line. How? He asked silently. That's from Dune Messiah. As some of you might have guessed, in this part 3, I will examine the ending of Dune Messiah, in which the truly blind Paul uses his infant son's eyes to guide Paul's own knife to kill Scytale, the face dancer. After this encounter, and the subsequent killing of the Tlailakku Bijaz by the first Gola Duncan with his restored memories, Paul comments, "There are some things no one can bear. I meddled in all the possible futures I could create until finally they created me. But who are they?" Paul, at this point, is in mourning for Chani, and Paul, having known true love, cannot bear to live without Chani. Paul, we find out in Children of Dune, is likely aware of the possibility of becoming the worm, but cannot bear a life of thousands of years without his Sahaya. While the female shared memory of the Bene Gesserit must include many memories of suffering, generations of childbirth, for instance, the male shared memory of Paul and Leto II, on the other hand, must be one of pain inflicted, war, torture, sexual assault, punishment. It is amazing that the infant Leto II is able to grow to be an effective leader, despite these images constantly going through his head for his whole life. Of course, he has help. The ancestor Harum, spelled Harum, agrees to help him forge the golden path. Haram in Arabic means forbidden. Is Harum possessing Leto II in the same way that the Baron Harkonnen possesses Alia? Has Leto II become an abomination, doing what is forbidden, in the same way that he uses Ixian machines that are forbidden within the Empire? I am not really saying that this Harum is malevolent, be he ancestor or deity or spirit. Leto II himself, in Children of Dune, says, to claim absolute knowledge is to become monstrous. Is Harum using Leto to claim his monstrous godhead and a new kind of immortality through the worm? By possessing Leto II in the future, is he able to save him and Ghanima in the past by using the baby's eyes to guide Paul? Because it seems that this ability to go back, to use your future self to go back and control the actions or send messages to your past self, does not seem to be something necessarily that humans can do, or even if they're pressing it. Paul could not see Leto II in his visions before he was born. This is likely part of the whole prescient people canceling each other out idea, which Herbert is pretty adamant about. When Leto II is given another dose of the unaltered spice essence in Children of Dune, he sees himself as a protozoan creature in which birth and death are virtually simultaneous. Is this the ancient spirit of Harum looking on the frail child he will transform? Is Leto speaking to Harum when he says, "Yes, Father," within, though he thinks he's speaking to Paul? In the trance of the spice essence, Leto II sees nothing firm, nothing balanced, nothing durable. Is this Harum reaching from the future and reminding him that the worm, who was called Old Father Eternity by the Fremen, is both their salvations? The worm is firm, balanced, durable. If Harum is powerful enough to quell the other voices, is he powerful enough to force Leto II to become the worm? To give Harum not just another skin on the corporeal plane, but an almost indestructible one? And if so, does Leto II purposefully kill himself in God Emperor to trap Harum in the primitive consciousness of the Shai Hulud forever? In the same way, perhaps, that Alia traps the Baron Harkonnen within her own consciousness, as alluded to in the previous video. There is a unity of life in Paul using his son's eyes to preserve his son, hinted at by that passage about protozoan life. As sand trout become pre-worm, does the golden path necessitate breaking the cycle of birth and death, or of babies and death, in which the original Leto II, the one who perishes in Book 1, is caught? Indeed, is Harum somehow responsible for the original Leto II's death in Book 1, realizing he needed the Leto II who is Ganima's twin, the one strong enough to save himself through his father, and then to get his father out of the picture? For Paul clearly feared Harum and possession of the worm body. Harum knew he needed to start with a preborn, one who didn't know romantic love of its own yet. And through this, is Leto II finally able to liberate his spirit and trap Harum in the new sand trout, precisely because of his selfless love for Hwai Nari in Book 4. A love so pure it does not involve possession as an ownership at all. Just like Paul's love is pure enough to withstand the temptation of the temptation of bringing Chani back, of creating a Gola, of disfiguring her soul, because performing necromancy seems to be the ultimate sin in many of Dune's cultures, probably precisely because soulless Golas are so easily possessed by spirits such as Harum, or the one which is inside the Baron, possibly. Paul's experience of using his son's eyes is like a vision, but not a vision. Is it because he is Harum traveling back in time at this point? Paul, who has by his actions in Messiah liberated himself from the pull of the gods and liberated Chani from further suffering, has likely doomed his son to possession and immortality. Through infant Leto II's eyes, he sees himself as, head down, a figure of no menace, ignored by the others in this room. This passage recalls Shiona becoming self-aware during Leto II's death and disintegration at the end of God Emperor. Shiona describes herself, "The multitude is there, but I walk silently among them, and no one sees me." Paul needed to create Leto II to distract the ambitious spirits from himself, a more tantalizing, more powerful bait. Leto is the more tantalizing, more powerful bait. So Leto creates in Shiona something else, a leader powerful and unpossessable, presumably. Leto II in God Emperor says, "Anything is possible in a magic universe." Nevertheless, he still calls Shiona by a strange name during his death throes. Leto and Harum, presumably, call Shiona Hanmaya, Hanmya, but we are given no context or explanation for this name. In trying to create someone new, did Leto II also accidentally bring back an ancient spirit? Did he accidentally create a vessel perfect for possession by only one particular feminine deity of which he was unaware or had forgotten? And does Hanmaya's presence have anything to do with the women characters, both good and bad, in the subsequent books? The Honored Matras, Odrade, Shiana. I'm no scholar of ancient languages, but if anyone knows if Harum, Hanmaya, or even Harkonnen are references to any ancient Hebrew or Arabic or Sanskrit deities or names, I'd love to know. And perhaps the vowels are anglicized, so feel free to Hanmaya might be spelled differently or even have different vowels. I'm not sure. Finally, I'm not so much proposing that all of this is the best or correct way to read these scenes, just that it is a fun way to do so. this whole idea of anything's possible in a magic universe. Let me know if you have any other scenes from the Dune Saga books that you think tie into this. And does this reading make you think that Dune's not so much hard sci-fi or, regular sci-fi? Is Dune, in a sense, a fantasy series set in the future? Thanks for watching. Fortune passes everywhere.